Hello, everyone. Matthew Kabitas here, as always, along with Christian. And today we are going to be joined by sherry and grape popsicle sticks, what I've been surviving on for the past 4 days. Speaking of which, the reason why we didn't have a show yesterday and we're having a show today is because I've been sick for the past 4 days with some sort of odd virus. I don't even know what it was. And unfortunately, we won't have a show next week because I'll be in New Hampshire, unless Christian wants to take over, but that's up to him. Christian, why don't you start us off by showing us your interesting contraption you've got?
Brief backstory. I've started doing some game videos with a friend of mine, and I needed a better mic because my current mic here listens to my computer. Like my old mic I was using when I was playing games could hear my computer. It was bad. So I went to the store and found a $5 Guitar Hero mic. This is great. Taped it with hockey tape to my lamp, and and it works really well. I think you guys can be the judges of that, I guess. But yeah, MacGyvering at its best. Canadian MacGyvering, because hockey tape.
Christian has done the most Canadian YouTuber thing ever.
I know. Pretty much. Ain't nothing hockey tape can't fix.
Speaking of impromptu meddling with things to make them work, I guess. You can't really see right now, but you see all this gross junk in the back that, of course, everybody loves seeing whenever my face pops up on the screen. It actually makes my face look a little better. I actually have some stuff here. Let me show you. I have some old costumes and T-shirts and stuff up there, as well as some stuff that I do wear, like a leather jacket and shit. I'm going, at some point, my father and I are going to put more of those hooks up there, and they're going to be covering back here so it doesn't look as gross. But anyway, enough with that. I know you guys love to know about our personal lives and the bullshit that comes with that. But let's get to the happy news. So I've been sick for the past few days. So this is kind of catch-up day for me with news. So I'm kind of leaning on Christian here to try to help me out with, even if it seems very, just trivial, it could be interesting to me because while I was sick, you think while I was sick I'd be able to look at news, but I was so sick. Oh, it looks like I'm bleeding. I was so sick I literally couldn't concentrate on anything that was above like a fourth grader's intellect.
Fun fact, best time to read because you were so out of it that you imagine scenes in the book you're reading way better than you do when you're there. I've found. Like some of the best reading experiences I've had is when I'm like absolutely out of it on like cold syrup and I'm reading and it's just like, oh my gosh. Oh my god. Because you're not there, so you're imagining everything way more vividly than you would if you were there.
Christian, you know what cough syrup is the main ingredient in?
No.
Lean.
I still don't know what that is, so I'm pretty.
It's a psychedelic drug.
Okay, well there you go. That would explain it. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
This
Christian's cough syrup trips.
This is softening the impact of the more serious topic we're gonna get to.
Anyway, so point is, I was out of it. I had a huge headache. I couldn't concentrate on anything. So what the last big piece of news that I left off on was I was just there enough to be able to see the beginning of the whole Alton Sterling episode that I guess is still going on. I hope is, along with the subsequent shooting of the Dallas police officers on Thursday or Friday night, I believe. So yeah, that happened. For those of you who have been living under a rock like myself for the past few days, Alton Sterling was yet another African American man who we have videotape of being arrested by and unfortunately killed by police officers. And the as always, the big thing is that from the video, a lot of people are saying that it doesn't look like there was a lot of just cause for the officers to kill him. The big thing being that first there are, I believe, two shots that go off in the video. Then there's silence for what, maybe 5 seconds max, and then there are several more shots after that. And prior to this in the video, you can see that I believe it's two police officers have him on the ground, pretty restrained. So I don't know. I'd like to. I hate to always point you out, Christian, as the token black guy, but I mean, come on, that's what you are on here. Even though we're a show of two people, though.
So you're the token white guy, basically.
Exactly. So okay. I can't exactly pull a South Park out there on you, but regardless, I want to know. Have you seen the video?
Yeah. I saw who was like guy shot in Baton Rouge though.
That was, oh yeah, that happened. I believe like the night after or something like that, or the day before. Philando Castile, I believe his name was.
I saw that one. Then the Alton Sterling one came, and I was like, okay, this is too much in like 24 hours. I gotta snap.
But so what? So now I have. I don't mean to sound like a Fox News contributor. I have a lot of black friends. But yeah, I have a number of people I know who are black, and they've all had different reactions to this. Some are more prone to be a little more political than others. The general thread that runs among them, though, of course, is, hey, we don't really appreciate all these people who look like us getting killed. That doesn't make us feel too comfortable. So I want to know, and it's especially interesting for you because you're also Canadian. So unless I'm mistaken, this isn't exactly as much of a problem up in Canada as it is in the United States. So I'd like to know your take.
Wow, that's a lot to handle at once. I've reached, it's the same thing with like guns and a lot of things. Because I'm Canadian, I've reached the point of like, I don't know how I feel. Like, I'm angry about it, but I've reached points like, I think if I were a black person and I had the money to move, I would have moved by now. Because I just, like, it's not safe for you. You're not appreciated there. There's not a lot you can do to fix that fact. If you have the opportunity to leave, do so. If you can't leave, I don't know. Just go South Africa style and put a barbed wire fence around your house and never leave it. Like, I like, that's all I could, like, I don't know.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
And make the white people pay for it. Like, I don't know. Like, what can you do at that point? It's just, yeah, like, I think we've reached a point where there's not much more we can say to add on top of what's already been said. Like, there's a cultural problem where we view black people as dangerous. Hence, we always go in there, guns drawn and ready to fire when it's a black person. And when it's a white person, it's like, well, we can talk this out because he's white and he's safe. Like, I don't know what more we could say. Like, that's it. Like, that's a problem. We're going to have to find a way to address it. And by denying the problem, it's going to perpetuate itself. And that's all we can say. Like, that's, like, I don't know what more I can add to that.
Well, okay, so I guess, yeah, we've had this conversation before, obviously on This Week Has 1 Hour, but therefore, you know, so we're pretty set. We know, we're both in agreement that this is a problem, that this is happening, and so something that I find very curious, just to go off of that point, is that there are a lot of people, unfortunately, some of them I know, who don't even recognize that this is a problem. And yet, the second that, what was it, four police officers,
In
five
Dallas.
in
Yeah.
Dallas are shot and killed, they're like, oh, the all lives matter hashtag, the blue lives matter. One of my friends changed his profile picture to, I think it was like a black bar, then a blue bar, then a black bar.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, to show solidarity with police. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, you want to show solidarity with police. I hear you on that. A bunch of people changed their Facebook profile pictures and Twitter avatars when there was the attack in Paris.
Yeah.
With that French flag filter.
Mhm.
But I just don't understand why. So they do that when one incident like that happens, one nationally broadcast incident like that happens. But when we see, especially this time last year, when we saw almost every week, a different story about some unarmed African American person who, whether in varying degrees, wasn't doing much wrong or wasn't doing much to warrant being killed.
Wasn't doing
Despite,
much. I don't think doing anything to warrant being killed.
Yeah. Well, of course they like to bring up, like, for instance, with Michael Brown. Oh, he robbed like a convenience store.
But that's not robbery. That's not much.
Yeah.
That's literally doesn't like we. The death penalty robbery that isn't the death penalty. Robbery is a few days in prison.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, okay, he robs a liquor store. Okay, he gets put in timeout for 2 minutes, and you wait. You wave your finger at him and tell him he's a naughty boy. Like, that's what you do. But no, he got killed. So we see this constantly, and yet these same people, and this isn't me just extrapolating. This is stuff I've actually seen from people that I know. And yet these people, they look at that, they say, "Oh, that's too bad." Goes on with their day, but then unfortunately, a few police officers are shot. Oh my god! Oh my god! Police matter! Oh my god! Oh my god! You have to go! You have to go! Like a friend of mine and her mother went and recently did a thing to show community support for my town's police, which is great. Great, I'm sure if I was a police officer, if just out of nowhere a bunch of my constituents came out and, say bought me a pizza or something, and it's just like, hey, thanks for doing a good job. I'd be like, hey, great. That's great to have recognition. Well, what about Alton Sterling? What about Michael Brown? Oh no, those guys were thugs. So yeah. I want to know. Do you have anything? Do you have any theories? I guess, or do you have any ideas why people are that just thick?
I think it goes back to what we were saying though. It's the problem is the black person is dangerous. Even if like a 13-year-old black kid is shot, like a lot of people I think somewhere in the back of their mind, they're like, well, it's okay because he was black and he was dangerous and he was gonna do something wrong eventually. Right? I think it's that. Whereas it's a police officer, it's like, well, I view police officers as a semblance of this broad American. They're like the, we've talked about before, whereas police are the physical representation of government in your community. And if you're like the concept of your country or your society, your police, you support them because they are that. They are the physical forceful representation of that government in that country you support. Whereas the black person is a potentially dangerous individual in your mind, so it's okay that he was neutralized early. And I think that's it.
I guess, but see, I don't want to say. I don't want to say that you're necessarily jumping to conclusions. I think it's a bit easier for you to say because these aren't your neighbors and friends you're talking about. These are.
Well, I'm not even saying it's. I even say this as it's not even like white people universally have that. There's a lot of black people. Like there's like in New York, I can't remember who was the guy who was strangled to death selling cigarettes.
Eric Garner.
Eric Garner. He was killed by a black person, right? Like I'm not even saying that's like a specific to white people problem. I think that's a cultural American, not even necessarily American specific. That's like a Western problem, where you just view certain groups as dangerous and certain groups as not dangerous. Asian people aren't dangerous, but brown people are kind of dangerous. White people aren't dangerous, but black people are kind of dangerous. And even if you're black or if you're Latino, you still, I think even you internalize that concept. You kind of think that, So I'm not saying it's because, they're white and they're racist and they're bad people. I'm just saying, like, no, I just think that's culturally how we think. Somewhere in the back of our minds, we've just sort of grown to have that from the TV, from the movies, from the books we read, just from general conversation we have with the people around us. We sort of grow to gain that sense.
I guess so, and I think it's I think that can kind of be applied at least from where I'm coming from, because I live in a very white town. Out of 20,000 people here, I did the math. Out of 20,000 people who live here, 75 are black. So I myself, I don't recall actually seeing and talking to an actual black person until I was probably a teenager. Like obviously, I'd go up to Boston and I'd see them. Like I'd see them, walking around and stuff, but I wouldn't, I didn't actually interact, have a conversation with them till then because of how white my town is. So I guess that kind of lends credence to what you're saying because, these are people in my town that I'm talking about, and it's a lot easier growing up here seeing a police officer than a black person. But that being said, I don't understand how. I just don't understand how you can just go from 0 to 100. You know what I mean? Like if you have a more, I guess, muted approach when it comes to stuff like this, and be like, I guess that's too bad for that Alton Sterling guy. Like, all right, I can kind of understand that. But people literally go from 0 being, he got what came to him. He's a thug, blah 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 blah, or maybe not even necessarily saying that, but just not talking about it, and then going from absolute 100 when it comes to police officers being killed and absolutely losing their shit and saying, how could this possibly happen? Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want police officers to die at all. They, especially around here, I think the police in my town do a good job. They serve the community well, and I know a few of them. They're nice people. But when did it become that the people they're supposed to protect, their lives and them in general become less valuable than the police? When did that happen? Is what I want to know.
Well, the question is, was it ever different? Really, was it ever different? I think the cameras are new, but you keep going back, you keep seeing things that would suggest this was happening in the past, right? Like, this isn't new. This is just, it's much better documented now, because now everyone's got a phone and you can't exactly hush the black people in this specific area about something that happened, right? So,
Well, what I mean is that it kind of extended beyond that because and I keep going back to the statistic because it really helps my argument that it's not necessarily completely a culture thing, but it's also a training thing because the statistic is that police are most likely to kill black people in urban areas and people regardless of gender with mental disabilities and illnesses in rural areas. And so that to me, I mean, I hope that that didn't happen in the past. But another thing I always go back to is the Vietnam era, and I think that's really where the whole support our troops thing came to be big because nowadays you say anything that even comes close to opposing anything the U.S. military does, and people jump down your throat like it's the size of a giraffe's or something like that. And but and I think that stems from back in the 70s when troops would come home and people would spit at them and throw stuff at them because a few of them were involved quite a few of them were involved in war crimes. And so there was a reaction to that threw it the other way. And maybe it's that way too. Maybe also because the high crime of the 80s and 90s. I I want to say that it's a little. I want to say, and I hope that it's just a little bit more complicated than just the cultural views of black people. Like I'm more than certain that that's a big part of it, but I want to say it's at least a little more complicated than
I don't know. I couldn't give you any better reasons.
that.
Couldn't give you any reason I could give you would just be further explaining why those cultural views exist. I don't think I could give you a separate concept altogether. It's interesting. I don't know how much you want to stay on the specific train of thought per se, but there was something earlier that you'd said that brought something to mind.
Go right ahead.
I made a video back in 2014 around the time. I think it was that around Trayvon Martin? I don't know. Something had happened to spark that video.
No, Trayvon Martin was 2012.
Okay.
2014. No, 2014. I want to say was I want to say that was the start of BLM,
Maybe.
or was that last year?
I don't know.
I can't
It was
remember.
late 2014, so maybe.
Then it was probably Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, all those guys.
Yeah.
Like that summer.
Mm-hmm.
Remember in the summer, and it kind of led into the fall of just all of those stories that came out of the police brutality. Yeah, I think that was probably it.
Yeah. But one of the things the video was discussing was I'd read something from a social studies professor at a university in California. I don't know. You can link the video below or something. But he brought up something where he basically the video was discussing his theory that when you have a social movement such as Black Lives Matter or any social movement, like really, you could even say the same thing about Bernie Sanders and his movement he's trying to do, is that you need a violent counterweight to that movement or else it won't achieve much of anything. And and he was saying and basically what he was getting to is you need something to push the center towards the peaceful alternative out of fear of the violent alternative. He was basically saying that, and I sort of went through a few cases how in India, of course, you had lots of bombings and terrorist attacks, and that's ultimately what pushed the British to accept Gandhi's movement. He was talking about how in South Africa that there was a lot of terrorist organizations that eventually that's what pushed the government to accept the more peaceful route through Mandela. So I was going through that. So I just found that interesting in the context of this, of what happened in Dallas, what you think about that theory. Because obviously no one here likes violence, no one wants to support it, and ultimately everyone wants, Black Lives Matter to be successful. But do you think that maybe, because I ultimately one of the major reasons I have a huge problem with what happened in Dallas is the police department in Dallas did nothing. Like, those are 5 completely innocent people who had nothing to do with this. And that really irks me. That's horrible and disgusting. And I'm like, I don't understand why you would do that. But nonetheless, what do you think about it with that context?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want to get to solutions at some point, because that's another big debate among the people such as you and I who already agree that this is a problem, we should do something about it, is, well, what should we do? Let me say first off, from what I understand about the situation, the Dallas thing is truly horrendous, because the officers who were killed were actually decent, trying to be decent people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure they were already decent people, but they were trying to be decent people with the protesters. Like, they weren't like swearing at them, like, waving their guns or hitting them with pepper spray. No, they were actually, for once,
Mm-hmm.
police made headlines in the past year and a half for actually being decent human beings to protesters and trying to de-escalate the situation rather than escalate the situation. But that's a side.
Yeah,
it's a very delicate balance. I'll put it that way, because you're not. It's not wrong that a violent counterweights to movements can often help the peaceful side of it in the long run. And your examples are good. Mandela, Gandhi, King, and Malcolm X, for instance, as well. But it's a very delicate balance, because of course there are going to be the people who exploit the violent minority, because in all the examples that you cited, and in most examples, the violent sects are usually the minorities,
mm-hmm.
and significantly small at that.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the oppressors and the people who support the oppressors, whether they're aware of it or not, often like to pick on the violent sects and
Mm-hmm.
say, see, these are the guys who represent this movement. This movement can't be trusted. We saw that, and we're seeing this already.
Yeah.
Because, as I said earlier, with the people who are losing their minds over
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so, over the police officers being shot, are now saying, "Oh, these guys who killed the police officers are what BLM represents," and blah blah blah. I'm sorry, how many cops did BLM kill before this?
I guess that leads you to an interest. So then perhaps you'd have to have that movement and have them come out and say, like, no, we don't agree with Black Lives Matter. We think Black Lives Matter is way too soft. Maybe that's what you need, is someone to, like, very vocally come out and say, like, no, I don't agree with Black Lives Matter because I think we need to do this. And then they can't associate Black Lives Matter with them, because that guy you're afraid of is saying, like, yo, I don't like Black Lives Matter. And then you've avoided that problem.
That definitely, that would be, I guess, helpful for our cause.
And in turn, Black Lives Matter just has to disavow Then again, it hasn't helped Muslims that every Muslim
Yeah.
organization in the U.S. has said like, "Yo, we don't like this." So they're like, "But you're Muslim." And they're like, "So?" It's
Well,
like, "Well, you're Muslim."
well, I think it's a bit different with Muslims and Arabs
Mhm.
more specifically because they the Muslim and Arab populations of the United States are significantly smaller than the black population, also significantly less tied to American history.
Mhm.
Like even the most racist of people in the United States pretty much realize there's no getting rid of black people.
Yeah.
Like you can harass them, you can throw them in jail, you can do whatever to them. They're not gonna leave. And they've been here since the beginning, literally since the beginning of the country.
Yeah.
So you're not getting rid of them. Muslims and Arabs, it's a different story because much more of them. There are very few of them, and so it's a lot easier to pick on, especially when there are other nations that have been very belligerent towards ours that are full of them.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different, but I think also given the history with, for instance, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., there's a lot more room for people to be more understanding.
Yeah.
And also, you sit an average American down, you ask them, have you ever, met a Muslim before? Probably going to say no. But then you ask them, have you ever met a black person before? They're probably going to say yes. So it it's it's a bit different, and I guess that's kind of good, at least for the black community. But it's definitely, yeah, it definitely doesn't help when the people who perpetrate these crimes say, "Oh no, I'm with the moderate wing of this movement." You say, "What now?"
Yeah.
No, you know you're not.
Yeah.
And then because that gives the opponents free reign to say whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's it's like it's like socialists being part of the Democratic Party, I
Mhm.
guess is how I would put it. It's like socialists being part of the Democratic Party, and then the Republicans saying, "Oh, well, see, you have a bunch of socialists in it," and but still the majority of the Democratic Party is just progressives and liberals, and they say, "Oh no, but we aren't socialists." Be like, "Yeah, but you got a few socialists,"
Mhm.
and that's kind of what started the blacklists. But anyway, uh, yeah,
Yeah. I don't know.
it's. I mean, do you know what? Maybe to be that violent counterweight, Christian and I will start a movement. It'll it'll be called No Lives Matter. And we will just go on a rampage and we will unite America once again through their common distaste for us. How's that?
Yeah,
And they can't.
I'm looking at my schedule. It's pretty packed across the board.
No, Christian, you got to be part of this because they can't make it a race thing if it's you and me. They can't make it a race thing if it's you and me.
If you can get Cade and Calgar on board with this, so they can't make it a political thing either, because we'll have like a unification of the right and the left, black and white combined in this. Then we could have a discussion.
Maybe you should get Go Green. What is his name?
Go Green 58. Yeah.
58. Yeah.
Ay. Oh man.
Speaking of that, a lot of hubbub has been made up again about the Confederate flag, everybody. Oh, joy. So, the I saw a story earlier, and here's a new story that I just saw again now, about the South Carolina Secessionist Party raised the Confederate flag in some sort of here. Let me look up. But the new story is that Stephen King, a Republican congressman from Iowa, displayed the Confederate flag in his office. Now, while I'm telling you the story, I'd like to just remind everybody that Iowa was never part of the Confederacy. In fact, it was very much loyal to the Union. So that just shows how smart Stephen King is, or Steve King, I should say. Stephen King is hilarious and a great writer.
Whoops.
He's creepy as hell, but I love Steve. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, basically they were having some meeting. I can't remember what they called whatever they call their meeting. But they're having one, and outside they had a Confederate flag displayed.
Here. Here's the King story. On July 6th, this is from bleedingheartland.com, by the way. On July 6th, King introduced, quote, Sarah's Law, named after his constituent Sarah Root. She tragically died in a car crash caused by a drunk driver who was also living in the U.S. illegally. Da-da-da-da! The text of the Sarah's Law is here. There's a link. It would require U.S. immigration, quote, U.S. immigration and customs enforcement to take into custody illegal aliens who have been charged in the United States with a crime resulting in the death or seriously bodily injury of another person. So basically, what Steve King is using this girl's tragic death to justify a racist law. And he has a racist flag while doing it. Well done. KCAU, the ABC affiliate in Soyu, I believe how it's pronounced, City, Iowa, ran a segment about King introducing Sarah's Law on the July 7th evening newscast and on a lunchtime show the following day. King staff uploaded a video to YouTube, and King then shared it on his congressional Facebook feed. Around the 25-second mark of the video, KCAU cut to footage of King sitting at his desk. And there's a picture of it here in the article, and he's got a little rotunda thingy of flags. I have one actually up in my bedroom, except it's got the flags of the countries of my ancestors, not of racist nations. One in the center is the American flag. All right, that's not bad. One is the flag of Vatican City. That's kind of iffy. One's Iowa. Okay. One's the Gadsden flag. All right, I like the Gadsden flag. And then the last is, of course, the Confederate battle flag. Okay, here's a good part. The article says, not only was Iowa a Union state, our state sent more soldiers per capita to fight for the Union than any other. More than 13,000 Iowans never came home from their Civil War service, succumbing to either disease or battle wounds. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, let's be completely fair to King here, okay?
No. 13,000 of the people in his state died fighting against that flag, and he has the nerve to put it up in his office. He should be fired immediately.
Is it like the fake Naval Standard 1 racists use, or is it the actual CSA flag?
No, it's the fake naval one.
So let's be completely fair to Stephen King. He's just trying to say he's racist. He's not saying he disagrees with those Iowans. He's just trying to say, I'm a racist motherfucker. And I just want you to be aware of that. That's all he's trying to say. So let's be fair to him. He is disrespecting the honor of these dead veterans, but all he's trying to say is that he's racist.
Here's an excellent next part of the story. Republican Party of Iowa Chair Jeff Kaufman blew a gasket when some GOP activists in Marion County displayed Confederate flags during a 4th of July parade last summer. So at least the chair of the Iowa Republican Party has some taste. But apparently Steve King, a U.S. congressman, doesn't.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
See, if this was like Trey Gowdy or something like that, someone from a state that actually seceded, I'd be like, all right, like it's still wrong, but that's fine. This guy's from a state that sent troops to fight against that flag, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna put that up in my. Like, I'm just thinking about that quote, and I forget who it's from, but it goes something along the lines of, "You must be a special kind of stupid."
These are all reasons I stopped doing this show, man. This is why I was like, I'm just gonna like, U.S. is done. I'm just gonna like focus on Canada because there's something to salvage here. Like, I don't even know.
Oy vey.
Like, you might have the Parti Québécois, but they would never fly an FLQ flag somewhere. Like, like I don't even know, man.
You know what's interesting is that the dude couldn't even get the racist part right. He put that flag up while he's championing a bill that would be racist towards brown immigrants, not black immigrants. Oops.
So he should have used the flag that would have flown at the Alamo, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Texas flag. All right. Well, this opens up a decent. This actually opens up a good discussion, because so the flag thing, we've beat that to death.
Yep.
No pun intended. Confederacy. Because it's pretty obvious why you shouldn't be flying that flag. At least in my opinion, it's pretty obvious why you shouldn't fly that flag unless you're performing a Civil War reenactment or it's in a museum somewhere.
Even if you're doing a Civil War reenactment, you wouldn't fly that flag because that'd be the wrong flag for your reenactment. It wouldn't be the Land Army flag.
Depending, who
reenacts a naval battle? Like, that's really hard.
The Monitor versus the Merrimack.
That's true. So if you did that once, if you're doing that one
Civil War naval battle ever.
So if you're doing that,
by the way, there were no Civil War naval battles. You know why? Because we had a blockade around them and they couldn't get past it within the first month.
Yeah. Let's have a flag represent us that represents the least effective element of the world's least successful army on this side of the continent. That's what we should do.
It's like trying to celebrate the Justice League and having Aquaman be in charge of the celebrations.
Pretty much.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah. Anyway,
and I'm not just saying that because they have the naval flag and he's Aquaman. It just so happens to be like that.
Yeah.
But it opens up a good discussion about Sarah's Law, because so this girl was unfortunately struck by a drunk driver who also happened to be an illegal U.S. citizen. And of course, and I see on my Facebook feed plenty of times from plenty of my conservative friends, they love to find stories of people who've come to the country supposedly illegally, who have committed some sort of crime. Famously, something like that happened, I think in Bridgewater. Bridgewater or Framingham earlier, either this year or last year. Of course, it ended up being a fake story. It was like, oh, five illegal aliens gang raped a poor white woman, and it's like, oh no, that didn't happen at all, and they're not illegal. And it was just like, oh, well, we're gonna find another story to focus on. I like how no one apologized for that, by the way, too.
Have you ever heard of the Barbaric Cultural Practices Act?
No, but that sounds racist as hell.
Okay, so basically, it's about a month before the election, and the Conservatives are third in the polls, and like, oh my god,
It's
this
past election?
This past election is like, oh my god, this is DEFCON 1. We got to do something. So then they're like, so what had happened was Harper had actually hired a lot of Bush's former staff. So I guess they came together and said, okay, let's pull off some like Republican thing. Like, I don't know, let's try something. So like Barbaric Cultural Practices Act. We will it's basically they're going to have like a special RCMP task force. So a federal police task force that would like help stop barbaric cultural practices, like foreign people things that we don't like, which some are bad, let's be fair, but it's horrible in concept. And they're gonna have a special anonymous phone line you can call, so you can like report when you see a barbaric cultural practice occurring. So it's like, this is sounding kind of a Gestapo-y, guys, but that's okay.
No, this sounds like it's like a department in Harry Potter or something like that.
I know.
Like, it sounds like, oh, this is part of the Ministry of Magic, the Department of Barbaric Cultural Practices and other odd-looking giant objects or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So
Anyway, continue.
And it like, that was the death knell for the Conservatives. Like, because then Trudeau was like, oh my gosh, this is racist, because that's like a ball out of the park. Like, you can still call it that. And they're like just that's what he got. Like, that was a big part of the reason he got that majority, right? So I'm just saying, I find it funny. Like, you can't pull that in Canada. Like, when you do that, that's like, you get called out immediately. But in the US, it's like, nah, this is acceptable. Like, I bet the Republicans could get that passed. They'd probably come with some crazy like acronym for it, like USA Defense of American Freedom Act, and it would be one acronym. And I'd be really impressed, because they must have like a whole bunch of English majors in the Republican Party. But yeah. Anyway.
I can see them doing that too. I'm surprised they haven't. I'm surprised. That's probably going to be the first thing that they're going to do. But because that's not fascist in any way. But what was I gonna say?
Sorry,
like,
I broke your train.
No, it's all right. This story brings up a good discussion about immigration, illegal immigration, because as I was saying earlier, Conservatives love to hop on these stories about illegal immigrants doing nasty stuff and saying, they shouldn't even be here, they're against the law, roar, government get out, like stuff like that. But, and another statistic I love, of all demographics of people who are adults, illegal immigrants are the least likely to commit crimes. Least. Why? Because guess what? If they get arrested, they get deported. And no, illegal loving Obama doesn't hug them and kiss them and keep them and say, no, you get to stay on welfare forever. Obama's deported more illegal immigrants than Bush did. Like, what part of that? And I'm not saying I'm proud of that. I don't like that. But I just want to know where people get these ideas. I want to know how, because I've never seen or heard any sort of statistic that's backed any of this up. Because the whole point, the whole point about discussion and debate is to have different interpretations of the facts. And I love having discussions with people and having them coming from a different perspective about the facts. One of my closest friends is conservative, and I love talking to him because he shows me different perspectives from which I can view things. And he's a reasonable person. But so much of this stuff that we talk about, that especially when it comes to immigration, people are literally pulling out of their asses. Like, I have no clue where this stuff comes from. And half the time, they don't even make an attempt to source any of the information that they say. One person I was talking to, who always has interesting things to say, said like 58% of American Muslims want jihad. Not jihad. My apologies. Sharia law over the Constitution. I looked up that statistic on Google. I couldn't find it anywhere. I literally typed in American Muslims want Sharia or something to that effect. I literally couldn't find anything. I don't understand where they get this from. I honestly don't. And how they then look at you with a straight face and be like, oh yeah, these are the facts. You know, this is left and this is right, right? Goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right?
Well, let's be honest, like, a lot of the... This is another big reason I originally left. The first time I left on YouTube was that problem. Was like, I talk about climate change, and I'd say, these are the facts. This is how many... Here's a study that literally shows 99.8% of studies done on this topic since the 60s agree with the facts that I am stating. What more do you want? Like, and I think the simple fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter if only 0.2% of the information available when you look it up on Google says what you want to hear. You nonetheless have found something that looks reasonably is dressed up well enough that you can then tell yourself that your pre-existing notions have been confirmed. And I just can't have that discussion. Like, I'm fortunate enough that when I talk to a lot of Canadian conservatives, I don't have this problem. Some of them do. Yeah, some of them, especially on climate change, that issue in particular, you can find some who will say, well, all the scientists were bought out by big environments. I'm like, okay, sure. That's right.
It's
that's
the trees, man. The trees.
Yeah.
You know those walking trees from Lord of the Rings? They bought out the scientists.
Exactly. But, like, I think that's simply the problem is people have... It goes back... I can't remember which... It was one of the Leave campaigners in Britain who said, people are sick and tired of hearing experts tell them what's right and what's wrong, or something to that effect. I think that's at the end of the day, that's a problem. It doesn't matter that you have a reputable source. It doesn't trump good old common sense, or what they perceive as good old common sense. And their good old common sense tells them that if you're someone who's an illegal immigrant, you're a dangerous person. So we got to get rid of you. Ignoring the fact that you said, for example, like, look, this is the least prone to crime element of American society, or other facts like that's the illegal immigration is one of the big reasons the U.S. isn't having the problems a lot of other Western countries are having. It. The population is just not, you don't have enough people having kids, and that's going to be a problem when you have a lot of old people and not a lot of young people to pay to support them. illegal immigration is helping the US stave off that problem. It doesn't matter that a lot of these people are patriotic Americans who, work hard. And a lot of the time they're doing the jobs that Americans wouldn't do and would have these would create massive holes in these different job markets. It doesn't matter. It's good old common sense tells me they're bad and we got to get rid of them. And it doesn't matter that you have facts and numbers, because I'm sick and tired of you and your facts and numbers trying to rule above common sense.
I'm glad you touched on the Brexit thing, because that's a problem that I'm continuously seeing, is that a lot of people, Trump, Sanders supporters alike, and obviously we saw a lot with Brexit, are people, myself included to an extent, are a lot of people saying, we don't want to be told what to do, what to think anymore. We're our own people. We've been screwed over by these so-called professionals and experts. We want a man of the people. We want someone real. And as much as you and I might like to get mad and might like to condescend and talk down and make fun of ignorant people in this way, and in some cases that's justified, perhaps we could go about it a different way. And what I mean is that people are angry because they've been screwed over. And they've been told since birth to trust professionals, to trust people who it's their field to know what they're talking about in regards to whatever it is. And yet they get screwed over. And so they say, well, then who do we turn to? We can only turn to our own. Because that way we know they're our own. They won't screw us over. So I guess what we have to do is really fix the system, which is why I'm disappointed Bernie Sanders didn't get as far as he could have, and why I think his revolution needs to continue on, because more people. I really like the big thing why I like Bernie's message is because it's strictly love, it's strictly kindness. It's strictly saying to the American people, I'm one of you, and I'm going to help fix this system. And I'm going to do it not by setting fire to the place, not by building a wall, not by building animosity. I'm going to do it by building bridges, by building schools, by building communities, and making this country a better place for everybody. So I guess what we need more Bernie Sanders. We need more people who are experts, who are smart, who can get down to the level of the layman, of the commoners, such as ourselves, and say, I'm going to help you, and actually do it. Or else we're going to have an absolute shitstorm in the next few years, and it's not going to be pretty.
It's interesting because I've been really, for completely unrelated reasons, really reading into the U.S. and what led up to the first real progressive era of, like, the two Roosevelts and those politicians. And I feel like there's a lot of similarities between that and around where we are now. And I think the mistake that Democrats have made is not especially like those in the party, is confusing what's going on with being a phase and not realizing this. It's the classic case of those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. They can't see the similarities between now and then. And I think they're saying this is a phase, this is a fad, this is gonna be like 5 years of this. Things will correct themselves like they did in the '90s, and we don't have to worry about this. I think that's a big miscalculation. I think that's what's allowing Trump to do so well, is that they missed the chance to get ahead of it. And my real fear is, I think you'd agree with me. I don't think Hillary Clinton's going to do what we think is necessary to fix the system.
Oh,
Correct.
absolutely not.
My fear
Absolutely
is
not.
that after 2 Democratic presidents, both of which who were incredibly establishment Democrats, Obama's probably as left as you can get as an establishment Democrat. I don't hate Obama, but I think he was someone who would have been good if things were already good. He would have been good at maintaining a good thing. It's that there's going to be so much anger and frustration coming out of Clinton, maybe even just her first term, that you're going to end up with a Trump who's really going to make things worse. And that's my real fear. It's not so much Hillary Clinton herself, it's the effect of having her, and her, even if she just maintains the course, I think frustration's going to boil over to a point you're going to have real problems. If there's any good that can come of that, is that I think it's always darkest before the dawn, and you'll probably see, and we'll probably have the Trump, people will realize, okay, that's even worse. Then you'll have the swing back. But that's my real fear in having Hillary Clinton, is I think she is going to she's going to beat Trump, hands down, but I think she's going to enable the worst element, because Trump's representative of something in the American right. He's an individual, but there's a lot of people who think like him, and I don't think just because we get past Trump doesn't mean that we're done.
And I definitely agree with your comparison with the progressive era, because just look at the elections before, leading up to it. William Jennings Bryan and James Weaver were both big candidates before the Roosevelts came onto the stage, and they were populists, progressives. But that's another thing, is that I don't think Hillary Clinton will even win, because what her strategy seems to be, at least for now, is make fun of Trump. Call out Trump for being a racist. Call him out for being a sexist. Call him out for being this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, we've been down that road. We get it. He's a bad guy.
But are you a good person either? Yeah.
Well, no. My problem is that isn't persuading anybody who wants to vote for him.
Mm-hmm. That's
not persuading anybody. That's just preaching to the choir, and she doesn't get that. She just thinks because there was such a vile reaction, especially initially, to Trump's beginning, that then most of the country must hate him. Yeah, but I think over 50% of the country already isn't going to vote because they're disgusted by Trump and they don't trust Hillary, right? So that's 50 to 60% of the country already out of the equation, right? Now it's 40, maybe even 30% that's actually going to vote, and they're stuck between a corrupt, crooked politician who's just going to deliver the same incremental crap that they've got for the last 8 years, or someone who's actually going to revolutionize the system, albeit not in the greatest way, but someone who's actually going to make change. And put yourself in an average American worker's shoes, right? Yeah, they're both rich people. But look at Hillary Clinton. She bathes in her fame, in her fortune.
Trump does as well, let's be honest.
But here's the thing. She mocks, but the thing is, she seemingly mocks the working class people by saying, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Every time I hear her speak about how she's going to fight for the working class, I laugh. Like, it just seems like she just seems so incredibly fake. Like, her and her whole aura is just so fake. It's like she reminds me of Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter.
That's actually really. I get that. I'm getting
Let,
that one. Yeah.
like I hope she's not nearly as nasty as Dolores Umbridge,
Mhm.
but she seems very very fake in that sense. And then Donald Trump, yeah, he bathes in his wealth pretty much too, and he's a nasty guy, but he talks like like average Americans. Yeah, average Americans don't go around saying, "Hey, N-word, what's up?" Blah blah blah. Like they don't do that. But in their homes, they'll be joking around. They'll be like, "Hey, fuck, blah blah blah," and like they try to keep it on the down low. And so, half of them don't really mean it, but they relate with him. He seems relatable. He seems like he actually knows what's in everybody's heads, and he knows what everybody's thinking. Clinton's just, oh, working class people, yeah, that's popular. Woo! Ha ha ha!
I get the
Let's
feeling that
play
if you actually,
Pokemon Go, kids.
if you watch Hillary Clinton though from the perspective of someone who supports her though, I mean like watch videos from people who support her and the clips they show from her speeches. And it gets back to an article I read on about from someone who supports her. It's this concept that she needs to win just for the cultural relevance of a woman being president. And that makes all of her other negatives, yeah, they're negatives, but they don't matter that much because this is really important. We have to have her for this reason. Yes, we can deal with the problems that Bernie Sanders talking about later. They are problems, whatever. They don't really affect me too much, and we can, the young people will handle it when it's their time, whatever. That's sort of what I get. It's this it's this like 40-year-old, 40 plus kind of feminist, kind of like we need her for the sake of having her. And these young people who dislike her, they're sexist and they don't realize it. I don't like that because it completely shows a misunderstanding of why people don't like her. But nonetheless, I think it's important to understand that's what her supporters think, is that you and I are being sexist for not, we just don't, we're sexist and we don't realize it. And we should be supporting her because, we should be supporting her because it'll be so culturally important that she wins that all the problems we're talking about don't really, they pale in comparison to the significance of that. I know we're really going on a tangent now, but I just
It's okay. And to go off of what I was saying earlier, another big problem that Hillary Clinton has that Bernie Sanders really shored up the working class vote. Like, yeah, Hillary Clinton got a good amount, but I doubt there were many rich people who voted for him, right?
Yeah.
And
I know a few, but yeah.
but here's the thing. Another thing is a lot of her supporters, maybe not necessarily rich, but tend to be upper middle class. They tend to be very well off. So, like you said, a lot of the issues Bernie Sanders brought up, the reason why they didn't go to Bernie Sanders is because they don't affect them very
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, college tuition, that's a problem. Everybody has to deal with that, and nobody wants to pay that absurd amount of money. So yeah, everybody wants to deal with that. Like that's a given. Gay rights, there are rich people who are gay. So yeah, let's get on that. All Black Lives Matter. Yeah, black people can be rich too and famous too. The president is one of them.
Yeah.
So let's deal with that. And that's another problem is that so a lot of her supporters are more well off. So when they try to talk to Trump supporters or when they try to sway voters, they really come off as condescending. Kind of like how we were talking about earlier about how we can't always be so condescending to Trump voters because they're the people that back in the day were voting for FDR. They're the people who were, the tough working class people that, you know, despite their social, how much we might not agree with them on social issues, uh, they're, in political correctness, they're at least the economic group that we're trying to, we as liberals and progressives are trying to appeal to.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least to me, a lot of Clinton supporters have often come off as as a working class person, I'm saying, not as a Sanders supporter, but as a working class person, as very snobbish, very know-it-all, and very high and mighty. Like, of course I vote I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. I'm a civilized person, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's not all of them, but that's just how I see it.
That's sort of the argument for Hillary Clinton. It's not even for me, that is the argument, right? Like, I have no better argument. Like, it's like, you're a decent human being. You must not want Trump. And there's only one alternative. Like, I don't even say that to be snobbish. I'm just like, no, really, I can't think of a good argument. I'd like to be able to give you a good, reasonable argument. That's really all I got. And the thing is, when you talk to Hillary Clinton supporters, they've just got an eloquent way of saying that, which is why they come off as snobbish, which gets to what you were saying. So that's what, it's not even to be a snob. That is the argument. That's all there is now.
Yeah.
And that gets to what I was saying.
Trump?
Do you? Yeah. And that gets back to what I was saying. It's the Democrats have missed they've allowed the tide of history to pass them by, and they're just presenting you something that's not relevant to the major issues of the day. It's like, this would have been great in 1994. This would have been a great candidate, but it's 2016, so why do we have this? And I guess that gets to the thing of, well, either she wins, which is what I'm predicting, is because I think at the end of the day, this. Then again, I was wrong on the Brexit, so I don't know. But that's the question then. Is it happen now, or does it happen in 4 to 8 years?
I don't know.
Anyway. Yeah.
And it's weird to think. It's weird to think which would I rather happen.
Yeah.
Happen. It's actually a hard thing to think about. But that's something that we'll be talking about on the show again in another 4 to 8 years then.
Yeah. And I'll be up here slowly building up the bunker,
Building the Great Wall of Canada.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Christian, as always, for joining me. Again, unless Christian changes his mind and wants to host this next week, I'll be in New Hampshire on vacation next Sunday, so I won't be able to do the show. We will have a show the week after, though, and I'm slowly but surely gathering up more guests, so it's not just us two talking heads all the time. All right, well, that's it for tonight. As always, everybody, remember, have malice toward me.